Okay. Mr. McKinney, I think you're a senior. Do you have a question?
That's certainly that. Governor, you indicated last week following the Supreme Court ruling that you may ask the court to reconsider the $32 million.
Yes.
You given that any more thought?
Yes, we're still reviewing, studying the law. The problem is, as has been suggested, is that ruling has implications not only for that money, but for other money going to a lot of other schools, as well as some other programs that the state have that are operating under the same sort of flow of the funds. And this money was not to go to the schools, but was to go through the parents to help pay their tuition to go to these schools. Our point is that we want all the children of South Carolina to be able to get the education, the best possible education, an excellent education for everyone, but those educations don't always come in the same package. And sometimes you can get them at the private schools, you get them at a Christian school, you get them at another independent school, you may be homeschooling. But we have to have all those avenues open. Everyone's been affected by this virus, and that is our way of helping those people who have chosen those independent and Christian schools and other schools for their very important reasons to be able to make ends meet and educate those children. So we are studying it, but as a lot of rulings, sometimes a judge or a court will rule on one case and it has implications for others. That's what's happened here, that lots of money is at stake for things other than just these private and independent and Christian schools.
I think you're talking about things like tuition grants.
That's right. And other money in the CARES Act. It's I think it's 115, it's over $100 million that has been provided to go to K-12 as well as colleges, private colleges. And we've got about 22, I think, in the state that would be allowed to have perhaps millions of dollars from that fund. And that, of course, is in question now. The Department of Administration will be answering that question as to their view as to whether those schools, those 22 private schools, which include our historically black colleges and universities, as well as Bob Jones University, as well as Walford and Converse and all the rest.
Governor, on the topic of schools, several districts are now transitioning to their next phases, but we're still seeing coronavirus cases pop up in public school districts. Is there anything more? I know the superintendent just had the big purchase of all PPE. Is there anything more that you would like to see the public schools do, or do you think we're progressing the way we should be?
No, I don't think we're progressing fast enough. I think we have offered from the very beginning, months ago, to provide whatever protective equipment that the schools needed, the districts, to let us know what they needed, and we would see it as provided. That was months ago. I've urged those schools to find a way to open those schools to face-to-face education 5 days a week as quickly and as safely as possible. That is a decision that clearly the parents want the children in school. A lot of parents are having to choose between their child's education and their own job, their own career, because the daycare is not available, the schools are not available, and they just they can't do it. So we have urged the schools and the districts repeatedly and emphatically to do all that is possible to see that they are having face-to-face education for those children. Those parents who want to be virtual at home, then that can be accomplished, we know, but that virtual education has been demonstrated time and again to work at some of the higher levels, to work sometimes in college and other, but not down at these lower levels. The children need their teachers, and you have emotional problems, you have economic problems, all sorts of problems. Again, this is one of those things where you make one decision to close the schools for one purpose, and you end up it being counterproductive in a lot of other ways. So those schools need to find a way to open up as quickly and as safely as possible. And I think they have not made progress fast enough to suit me. And I need to say, neither have the nursing homes. We took the limits off the nursing homes some time ago. There are tragic situations there. We want those nursing homes to find a way to allow the outdoor visitation, to allow visitation, start with outdoor, but to allow visitation, allow those families to see those people. That's another area in which we're not going quickly enough.
You also announced, of course, the restaurants opening back to 100% capacity, but a lot of restaurants, at least here in the Midlands, are still saying they want to stay 50% capacity.
No, that's fine. They can do that.
Yeah,
we're not requiring anybody to open.
Yes, sir, I know. But what are your thoughts, especially when it's still listed as one of the more risky activities to actually dine indoors, and you're saying, hey, you can have 100% capacity? Is that a good idea?
We're saying that we have lifted our restriction on the capacity of the restaurants. We are not saying that every restaurant should jump up and have 100% capacity. If they can do that safely, if they can do that carefully, then they ought to do it. They know their clientele, they know the space they have, they know whether they have indoor or outdoor. There are a lot of different factors. I can't make that decision for every single restaurant. There are plenty of people that are involved. The Accelerate SC went into this in some detail, but those decisions need to be made by those restaurants. But we have taken the limits off because we know that there are many that can and are operating at that capacity and doing very well. And see, this is another one of those things. You have these limits to accomplish one purpose, and then you have it's counterproductive in other areas. South Carolina is open for business. When we went into the virus, we were careful, we were measured, and we targeted those areas of activity and life and businesses where we were confident, based on the science and the data, that the virus was most likely to spread. That's what we targeted. We did not get into the declaring a business essential or non-essential. We avoided that. Instead, we determined which businesses, which activities were the ones where the virus was most likely to take root and to spread. And those are the ones that we put the limits on. And now we have taken the limits off of those, except for the large gatherings, which cannot go over 250 people unless they get the okay through the Department of Commerce by submitting their plan to show how it's safe. South Carolina is doing well. We've announced new businesses coming in. We're open for business, and the businesses around the world know that this is a great place to do business for a lot of reasons. And one of them is because we don't close down like they do in other places unnecessarily.
What about a rapid test and things of that nature coming to South Carolina, getting teachers and children and people out in the public that result faster, so we can get ahead of the curve?
Yes, those tests they've been coming. The Trump administration has done a terrific job of getting those tests out and available. We've had, as you know, conferences with the administration and the Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and everyone in between. But we're getting more and more tests. But right now, the question is not so much the availability test, but the people's willingness to go get one. Because we were hoping to be testing 500,000 people a month, and we came close to that a couple of times. And then I think some test fatigue set in, and people are simply not going to get the tests are available, and in many instances they're free. So we still have mobile sites set up all around the state. You can go on the Accelerate SC website or the Department of DHEC website, and you can see where those tests are, and they're perfectly free. And now some of them take a little longer than others, but now we're getting it down to where I can't remember the name of the test, but it's one where it's an easy swab. Commander Jones, Admiral Jones was here and performed the test himself. Maybe some of you were there. That was the way I asked all the reporters there if they'd had a test lately, and some raised their hands and some didn't, and he asked you to go right on back there and get a test. But those tests are available, and people ought to take them. The real danger is our older population. We know a lot more about this virus than we did at the beginning. We know now that the younger people can get it and not know it, but can still spread it. I don't think we've had anyone under 20 years old to pass away from the virus yet. Every life we lose is a tragedy, but we know that the most vulnerable population is the older population, the seniors, particularly those with some sort of pre-existing condition, a weak heart or diabetes or something. Those are the ones that we must be sure that we protect. And so we're explaining that, and our efforts are geared to do that.
Governor, you're meeting with CDC Director tomorrow. What are you looking forward to talking about, whether it's with him and other state agencies, just kind of about the state's response to the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, everyone that has evaluated our response so far has been very, very positive. What we want to know from them, we want more of these rapid tests. We want to have plenty of them available, because getting a test and having to wait 1 or 2 days is better than the 7 days that it used to be. But we'd like to have those rapid tests available for a variety of functions, and have plenty of them, and have them be without cost to the people.
And Governor, USC is once again starting to consider maybe renaming buildings after, like the Strom Thurmond building and a few others that are named after what some people believe to be controversial figures. Do you have any more thoughts on that, or what do you think should happen with that issue?
Well, we have the Heritage Act was designed to answer those questions, and as those changes are sought by whatever institution or government looking for them, then that would be the process that they would go through. But I would say this, that South Carolina has a long and very interesting history, and it's taken a long time for us to get to where we are today. And I'm more interested in building up than tearing down, in forming rather than tearing things down. I think we need to be careful. I know there are a lot of celebrated people that we have in our state that have not been recognized, and I think we need to think about that too. Goodness, just a couple of days ago, Governor Beasley, his organization, the World Health, the Food Organization, won the Nobel Prize. I mean, we have a lot of South Carolinians that are outstanding and should be recognized.
Would you support them taking the place, like if the Strom Thurmond building on USC was renamed to something like the David Beasley building?
Strom Thurmond, I was a friend of Strom Thurmond's and worked with, of course he's a lot older than I was, but I worked for him in Washington, and he was an extraordinary man. And he did a lot of great things for the country and for the state. And I would ask people to think very carefully before they want to remove Strom Thurmond's name from anything, to look very carefully at what he did for this state. In my opinion, he was a great man.
What's the problem with nursing homes? They're just simply not doing what DHEC's allowing them to do, in your opinion?
They have their own reasons. DHEC has been in conversation and communication to survey and see why some are not moving as quickly as others, but we've got to get the families need to go and be able to see their loved ones in those friends and families in those nursing homes, whether it's inside or outside. It's been over 6 months now, and that's too long. And there are ways to do it. Now, a number of them have set up the procedures, and they're very good, DHEC, but not enough. It ought to be all of them by now.
Governor, you mentioned testing fatigue. One of the cities that we've seen a massive drop, for example, in COVID cases is Charleston. Right? They had a huge spike in July, I believe it was June. What do you think has contributed to that drop, according to the DHEC website?
Well, I think it's because people are being careful. I mean, it's really, it's easy to be careful. You remember, you've got your mask, you've got your distance, you've got your washing hands, don't be around people that are sick. Stay away from crowds, stay in the open air as you can. We know so much more about it now than we did then. And the places have been particularly hard hit, of course, are the places that have learned the lesson better than others, I think.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.